Daniel Black, they call me Dan. I finished my Navy career as an E5. I was a sonarman. Enlisted from Washington State, boot camp at the Naval Training Center in San Diego. I enjoyed it. In other words, I didn't find it too restrictive. I found the fact that if you have to have your bunks a certain way and have your sea bag folded a certain way and your clothes folded a certain way, that's fine. I didn't mind the discipline. I came from a family of discipline, and it just wasn't something where I found myself getting all excited about it. You have to clean the head, you have to polish the bright-work, you have to scrub the toilets. Fine, they need to be done anyway. You might as well do it and do them right. So I didn't have a problem with boot camp. Scrubbing your clothes, if you're familiar, you have to scrub your clothes every night. And not only did you scrub your clothes, but the next morning, when you put the dry ones on that you had, they better be clean. Because you had an inspection every morning where they ask you to take your skivvy shirt and stick your thumb in here and turn it out like that, it better be clean. When they say you're all lined up at muster, uncover, you take your white hat off, and there better not be any kind of yellow around that white hat. And so you knew that, so you scrubbed them up and you did it right. I had no problem with boot camp at all whatsoever. Well, the chow hall at boot camp, you know, it's the food. It depends when you get there. You're eating off of metal trays. There's no such thing back in those days as plates. It was metal trays. And if your company, I was in company 292, which is usually about 75 sailors in there. If your company got there early, the metal trays were still cold. If you got there later, they'd come out of the scullery and they were hot and they were steaming and they were wet. The food was, you come through the line and you don't get to pick anything out. They put it on there. You get used to it. Again, I wasn't the type that got excited about that. That didn't bother me. Boot camp didn't bother me at all. In fact, I got into color guard because I was the right height and I could march. And I would, when they'd say left face, I'd turn left. You know, I knew how to do. So I got into color guard, and then I was promoted to the brigade commander. So I got the opportunity to lead the entire brigade during our graduation, which is just me and a bugler and a guidon bearer. And we march on this great big grinder with a haul. I'm thinking 4 times 10, probably about 40 companies all at the same time, and they all march and review. And they brought some dignitaries in at the dignitary stand and all that. So I was the brigade commander for that. Well, no fixed ammunition weapons whatsoever. It was the old M1 Garand, and what you did is you used it for exercise because you had to learn something called, I believe it was called the 16-count manual, where you did all kinds of things with it and do it right. But it was not, there was no live fire training weapons at boot camp when I went through. I don't recall, we didn't use a 45. The kids from California, we were pretty much, you could pretty much relate to them. But we had, in our company, we must have had a dozen or so from the southeast, Alabama and Mississippi, black kids. And it was just so awfully unfortunate talking to them, and then they were surprised too, because back where they were with the Jim Crow laws, they couldn't ride in the front of the bus, you know, and they couldn't sit at lunch counters and things. So when we finally got, you don't get liberty in boot camp until about the 4th or 5th week. A couple of them that you would talk to were obviously pleased that they could do the things in San Diego, which was a very open Navy town, that they couldn't do back home. But we related with them very well. I mean, we didn't have any problems. We had no real animosities I can recall in boot camp. We had a company commander who was as mean and nasty, and he could curse like a sailor, like a drunken sailor. But you just roll with the punches, you know. I think one of the first times we went to see, when they took us all in to have a meeting with the chaplain, they take the Catholic students, or the Catholic recruits, and they all go in, and the chaplain would talk to them, and in the Protestant they talk to them. He just said, you know, you're going to hear language that you don't want to use at home, but that's the way it is, and you know, get excited about it. And there's a few kids that you get their back up because they get upset, you know. And then a few that didn't do well in their studies, because probably didn't do well in high school either. But it was a good experience. I mean, I could never say there was anything about my Navy experience that I disliked or that I don't think is beneficial to anybody later on in life. You know, wait till you go to work sometime and find out that you don't like your boss. Well, if you've gone through some of these experiences, you know that you're not going to like every boss that you ever come up against. It's just not going to happen. You kind of roll with the punches. And then you put in your mindset is, someday I'm going to be a supervisor or a manager, and I'm going to learn from this guy. That's not the way I'm going to do it.